Killer earthquake rocks Sichuan province. Boston Marathon bombing suspect captured. And protests mar presidential inauguration in Venezuela.
Good evening. A powerful earthquake has struck Sichuan province, killing at least 124 people and injuring more than 2,000. It caused landslides and the collapse of buildings. Rescue efforts have been hampered by boulders thrown onto narrow mountain roads. Etienne Lamy-Smith reports.
Security cameras caught the violent tremor. The quake sent people fleeing to the streets to get away from buildings. It struck at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and many people didn't have time to get dressed. While some were visibly frightened, others who experienced the deadly 2008 Sichuan earthquake were a bit more composed. This woman says she wasn't scared. She's alive and there's no reason to panic. Buildings were left cracked and badly damaged by the quake, measured at magnitude 7 by Chinese authorities and 6.6 by the US Geological Survey. Hundreds of aftershocks were recorded throughout the day, and authorities urged people to be careful. In rural areas where damage to older brick buildings is said to be more extensive, landslides dislodged rubble and boulders onto the mountain roads, slowing rescue workers. Some more remote areas have been completely cut off. State media reports that a vehicle carrying 17 soldiers heading to the quake-hit area careered off a cliff in Ya'an, killing one of the men. Witnesses say the driver may have lost control while trying to avoid an obstacle. More than 6,000 military personnel have been deployed to help in the rescue efforts. President Xi Jinping has ordered troops to make every possible effort to save people who might still be alive. And Premier Li Keqiang flew to the region this afternoon to coordinate the rescue efforts. He said the 24 hours after the quake hit are crucial to saving lives. While workers have rescued dozens of people so far, the death toll is likely to rise as rescuers pick their way through the rubble. 6 Hong Kong tour groups were in Sichuan province at the time, but all the tourists are said to be safe. 5 years ago, the area was devastated by a magnitude 8 earthquake that left more than 80,000 people dead. Experts say today's quake, while smaller and expected to have caused less damage, resembles that of the 2008 tremor, which occurred on the same fault line. Etienne Lamy-Smith, TVB News.
To the other major story of the day, police in Boston have captured a 19-year-old man suspected of carrying out the Boston Marathon bombings with his older brother. The suspect was admitted to hospital in serious condition. The arrest capped a terrorizing day of events that shut down a major American city. Following a tense manhunt that lasted almost 24 hours, 19-year-old suspect Johar Tsarnaev found himself cornered in a suburb of Boston. He was hiding in the stern of a parked boat in the backyard of a house in Watertown.
There are two more bangs right there.
As the arrest went down, 2 gunshots rang out and police were heard yelling, "Stay with us." And with that, the manhunt was over.
We are eternally grateful for the outcome here tonight. We have a suspect in custody.
Police confirm Johar was bleeding in serious condition when taken to the hospital. Authorities were lauded for a job well done.
Because of that extraordinary collaboration and cooperation by all of these law enforcement resources and assets, and more to the point, people, professionals who brought their A game, we have a suspect in custody tonight.
Nearby, police received applause by the public, relieved the attack on their city on Monday was now over.
Relief. We can sleep well tonight.
President Barack Obama said the mass wounded and families of those killed in the bombings still deserve answers.
We will determine what happened. We will investigate any associations that these terrorists may have had, and we'll continue to do whatever we have to do to keep our people safe.
but trying to keep an entire city safe during a tense manhunt made for one horrifying day. Johar and his older brother, Tamerlan, were cornered in a raging gun battle with the police during the early morning hours of yesterday. They were accused of gunning down an MIT police officer earlier. Hearing the hail of bullets ringing out kept residents in sheer terror. When the smoke cleared, Tamerlan was found dead, clad in a suicide bomb vest. With Johar still on the run, the entire city of Boston became a virtual ghost town as a lockdown order went into effect for much of yesterday. In the name of safety, authorities warned people to stay home and mass transit and businesses were shut down. Now, authorities vow to get to the bottom of whether the Tsarnaev brothers had acted alone or were part of a larger terror network.
As Boston breathes a sigh of relief that its ordeal is finally over, authorities are turning their attention to the pair believed to have carried out the marathon bombings. And the question on people's minds is, why would two brothers who emigrated to America turn on their adopted home in such a violent way? Tony Sebine has that story.
As the dust settles from the worst act of terror on U.S. soil since the 9/11 attacks in 2001, people are trying to make sense of days of mayhem which left Boston badly shaken. While authorities will never be able to talk to Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who was killed in the standoff with police, officials hope his captured younger brother Johar will give them some answers. 26-year-old Tamerlan was a respected amateur boxer who wanted to become an engineer, while his younger brother was popular in high school and won a city scholarship to college. It's why those who knew them found it so hard to believe they were caught up in all this. President Barack Obama explained what authorities were hoping to learn about the ethnic Chechen pair who emigrated to the U.S. from the Republic of Dagestan in southern Russia.
Obviously, tonight there are still many unanswered questions. Among them, why did young men who grew up and studied here as part of our communities and our country resort to such violence? How did they plan and carry out these attacks, and did they receive any help? And so I've instructed the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security and our intelligence community to continue to deploy all the necessary resources to support the investigation.
But Obama warned against jumping to conclusions, saying the investigation had only begun and it would take time to understand the case. In Dagestan, which is next to Chechnya, the brothers' old man refused to believe they were involved. Somebody clearly framed them, the father said. I don't know who exactly framed them, but they did. But back in the United States, the suspect's uncle refused to give his nephews the benefit of the doubt, saying they had brought shame on the family.
Of course we're ashamed. Yes, we're ashamed they're children of my brother, who had little influence of them.
Authorities are now combing through online clues left on social networking sites such as YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Also of interest to authorities, any suggestions they had links to Chechen separatists or other militant groups. But Chechnya's president said the pair had nothing to do with the country, and instead Americans should start looking at home, given they spent so many years in the U.S. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
Horrifying news coming out of India today. A 5-year-old girl was the victim of another high-profile rape case there. Police have arrested a 22-year-old man on allegations of rape and torture. After her parents reported the girl missing, she was found in the suspect's house. Police say the man, who's a neighbor, held the girl hostage for 3 days as he raped and tortured her. A group of angry protesters gathered outside the New Delhi police headquarters demanding better law enforcement. This latest assault triggers memories of December's gang rape of a medical student on a moving bus. That woman later died of her injuries, and her case prompted a rash of protests in many parts of the world over the apparent lack of safety for women in India.
Nicolas Maduro has been sworn in as Venezuela's president at a ceremony attended by world leaders. The inauguration came a day after the country's electoral commission announced it would allow an audit of the razor-thin vote that saw Maduro elected. And as Alan Buchnia reports, the ceremony yesterday had its share of problems.
The inauguration could have gone a bit smoother for the man picked to lead Venezuela for the next 6 years. The man ran onto the stage and grabbed the microphone, shouting, "Nicholas, I am Henry." He was subdued and arrested, and the inauguration continued. But looming over the ceremony was a recount of the vote he won, which is due to begin next week and expected to take about a month. Cheered by supporters that numbered far fewer than his predecessor, the late Hugo Chavez used to draw, Maduro said he respected the Election Commission's decision to hold the audit and expressed confidence in the outcome. The new Venezuelan leader also said he was prepared to enter into a dialogue with his political opponent, Enrique Capriles. The 50-year-old Maduro was narrowly elected on Sunday, and Capriles alleges there was a series of irregularities in the voting. Maduro needs all the momentum he can muster to consolidate control of a country struggling with shortages of food and medicines, chronic power outages, and one of the world's highest homicide and kidnapping rates. And while this drumming was part of the Inauguration Day celebrations, elsewhere in Caracas, the banging of pots that symbolizes opposition to Maduro continued. Alan Buchnia, TVB News.
Formal campaigning got underway today in Malaysia ahead of next month's general election. A resurgent opposition is challenging Prime Minister Najib Razak's governing coalition. Najib was among the candidates who submitted nomination papers at their home constituencies today. That paved the way for the start of a 15-day campaigning period. Najib is seeking his first mandate at the polls since taking power in 2009. He has portrayed himself as a reformer. And to boost the appeal of the ruling National Front, 1/3 of the candidates running for parliament are new. The coalition has ruled Malaysia for more than half a century now. The opposition is led by former Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. His three-party People's Alliance currently holds slightly more than 1/3 of parliament seats and controls 4 of Malaysia's 13 states. The alliance has promised a clean break from a corrupt past by weeding out endemic graft and crony capitalism. Malaysians will go to the polls May 5th. And when we come back, tough talk by Hutchison Whampoa over strike angers unionists. Number 3 alarm fire sweeps through Wong Tai Sin Market, and Pervez Musharraf remanded in custody for 2 weeks.